The Body Reset, reclaim your energy, strength, and focus. Stoic Wisdom for modern life opening. You are not exhausted because you do too much. You are exhausted because you live the wrong way. Have you ever woken up on an ordinary day with no sharp pain in your body, yet you feel like you've just survived a war? Heavy eyes, a tangled mind. Motivation evaporated without a trace. You glance at your packed schedule, unfinished tasks, unread messages, looming deadlines, and all you want is to disappear. Not because you're lazy, but because you're drained. What's strange is, you can't even remember what you did to end up this worn out. We live in a world where stress is worn like a medal, where staying up late is seen as ambition, where skipping meals to work is mistaken for achievement. We admire those who run 10 kilometers at dawn, attend 8 meetings a day, eat so clean they fear a bite of chocolate, sleep 4 hours and still grind. But deep down, most of us aren't happy. We're not healthier. We're just wearing ourselves down in more sophisticated ways, with a label called self-improvement. You may hit the gym consistently, follow strict diets, track every calorie, and master iron discipline. But if you're doing all that from a place of not enough, must be more, must be thinner, must be better, then you're living against nature. And when you go against nature, exhaustion is inevitable. Not because you're weak, but because you're heading the wrong way. They say burnout is a badge of honor. The Stoics say the opposite. Burnout is a signal you've drifted from your center. You are doing, but don't know why. You are trying, but not sure for what. Every morning becomes a loop. Push, fatigue, ignore, push harder, crash. Yet few ever pause to ask, what am I running toward? And what am I running from? If you don't know the answer, maybe it's time to stop. Not to quit, but to recalibrate. Because if you're rowing hard across an ocean with a crooked rudder, no matter how strong you row, you're only drifting farther from the most vital shore, awareness. The Stoics never preached extremes. They didn't treat the body as the enemy or discipline as punishment. They didn't sleep 4 hours to prove their resolve. They lived differently. Success is meaningless if it leaves you hollow. Power is worthless if it brings chaos. And self-growth, without harmony between body, mind, and spirit, is just a prettier form of self-sabotage. So if you're feeling tired, it's not because you're weak. It's not because you haven't tried hard enough. It's because you haven't been living right. You're resisting yourself instead of cooperating. You're demanding energy without replenishing it, punishing your body instead of understanding it, optimizing without balancing. And that is not the road to strength. It's the road to collapse. But you can step out of that loop, starting today. You don't need a grand overhaul, just a quiet adjustment. In the Stoic way, adjust how you view your body, how you rest, how you eat, how you move, how you begin each day. Above all, adjust how you choose to live, not by the rush of the crowd, but by the clarity of your own mind. Because the path to true energy, real strength, and lasting focus is not found in more, but in right. And right is when you live in rhythm with nature, with the quiet pulse within you, not the frantic heartbeat of a world addicted to productivity. Now, are you ready to adjust? Part 1. Don't punish your body. Understand it. Work with it. You weren't born to be a machine. Yet in this world, you were taught to function like one. Rigid, relentless, silent, always moving forward. You learned to force yourself. Force workouts, force diets, force late nights, force emotions into silence. Then one day your body speaks up. Dull aches, vague fatigue, lost appetite, restless sleep. You call it burnout, stress, something to power through. But in truth, it's your body trying to have a conversation. The body is never silent. It whispers every day. Hunger is a signal. Fatigue is a message. Pain is a warning. But in a world where silence is mistaken for strength, where discipline is misunderstood as self-oppression, we learn to mute those signals instead of listening. You reach for coffee to silence the tiredness. You pop painkillers to keep training. You treat ignoring how you feel as a badge of mental toughness. Yet Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, what is in accordance with nature is always right. The body is nature, and you cannot conquer nature through force, only walk with it through understanding. You don't need to fight hunger. You need to distinguish real hunger from emotional craving. You don't need to resist fatigue. You need to recognize it as a call for recovery. You don't need to punish pain. You need to ask whether it's growth or misalignment. This is not weakness, it is wisdom, because the strong are not those who suppress themselves, but those who know themselves so well, suppression becomes unnecessary. Your body is not a problem to solve. It is a partner, a companion. It carries you through every sleep, every step, every illness, every hard day. It is not perfect, but it is loyal. And the strange thing is, when you begin to respect it, it begins to grow stronger. When you stop fighting it every day, you release a reservoir of energy you never knew you had. Change the question from, how can I force myself to be better, to, what does my body need for me to live better? Turn training into a conversation, not a punishment. Let fatigue be a sign to rest, not a reason for guilt. And remember, you don't need to conquer your body. You need to cooperate with it, because true strength doesn't lie in control. It lies in understanding. And from that understanding, live with it, naturally, steadily, and with full awareness. Part 2. Rest is not stagnation. It's a long-term survival strategy. Have you heard this before? If you want success, you have to sacrifice even your sleep. In today's world where people measure their worth by hours worked, sleeping less has become a silent badge of honor. People boast, I only sleep 4 hours a night, as if announcing a victory. But what lies behind those sleepless nights? A body gradually drained, a mind clouded, a growing fragility in clarity. And success, if it comes, often arrives hand in hand with a deep disconnection from oneself. The Stoics did not live like that. They understood rest is not a reward for the lazy, it's an essential part of a sustainable strategy. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, general, philosopher, once said, dig deep within yourself. There is a wellspring of strength there if you learn to access it, but you cannot reach that strength if the vessel, your body, has already run dry. No amount of caffeine can replace a lost night of sleep. You can try to focus, but a tired mind becomes irritable, slow, and shallow. Sleep loss, thought loss. It sounds exaggerated, yet it's painfully true in an era where people casually trade sleep to finish one more deadline, watch just a few more clips, or get ahead on KPIs. In doing so, you quietly dismantle your nervous system, piece by piece. Stoics do not glorify busyness. They value clarity, and clarity only lives in a body and mind that have been properly restored. They knew constant work is not power, it's poor strategy. Real power lies in purposeful energy management, knowing when to push, when to pull back, when to exert, and when to pause. You don't need to prove your worth by working yourself into the ground. You need a nervous system steady enough to think clearly, choose wisely, and face adversity with calm resolve. And that doesn't come from artificial energy. It comes from quality rest. Treat sleep as the most important strategy meeting of your day. See moments of silence, relaxation, and stillness as times to regroup before advancing. That's not laziness. That's depth. And in this age of constant distraction, depth is a rare kind of power. True success doesn't come from frantic hours, but from grounded presence in each choice. And you cannot be present if you're tired. So rest is not a luxury. It is the most essential part of a strong, directed life. Part 3. Eat not to forget life. Eat to live rightly with it. Have you ever opened the fridge not out of hunger, but because you felt empty? Have you ever eaten mindlessly during stressful shifts or grabbed something sweet after an argument, a lonely evening? Many don't eat because of physical need, but because an inner emotion is screaming and they don't know how to face it. Eating to fill a void, eating to forget, eating to avoid feeling. In a world of constant stimulation, where every scroll floods you with food ads, where negative emotions are seen as things to get over quickly, it's understandable that food becomes a kind of anesthetic. But a Stoic would ask, does this food truly nourish you, or is it just numbing you? To the Stoics, eating is neither a guilty pleasure nor a battle against temptation. It is an intentional act, a link between the body and reason, a conscious choice, clarity over blindness, vitality over escape. Seneca once wrote, "We should train the body around so it does not rebel against the mind." One of the simplest ways to do that is by cultivating mindful eating habits. Stoics don't eat to escape life. They eat to serve it. They don't place food on the table as release, but as renewal. Before eating, they ask, what does my body truly need? Will this meal make me clearer, sharper? And if the answer is no, they don't refuse out of guilt. They refuse out of respect for themselves. This doesn't mean harshness, extremism, or chasing perfection. The Stoics understand the body doesn't need ideal enforcement. It needs stability and sustainability. A piece of cake isn't the enemy, but if you eat it to flee an emotion, that action is what deserves reflection. The strong are not those who worship diet rules. They are the ones who can sit down at a meal with presence. No guilt, no force, no avoidance. They eat to live more clearly, not to blur themselves out. And in that awareness, every bite becomes an expression of inner strength. Remember, you don't eat to be forgiven for how you feel. You eat to live, and to live rightly, because a body nourished with care will always be an ally to wisdom. And a clear mind will never starve itself on the sweet deceit of unconscious habit. Part 4. Discipline is not force. It is the highest expression of self-respect. Many people fear discipline. They see it as rigid, joyless, restrictive. They fear early mornings, fear saying no to temptations, fear structure and rules. Because to them, discipline is a kind of mental prison where joy goes to die. So they choose the opposite: freedom, eating by emotion, sleeping when tired, working when inspired, quitting when bored. But in doing so, they become habitual procrastinators, quick to give up, easily lost, always feeling like something's missing. They think they're living freely, but in truth, they are slaves to ungoverned impulses. Epictetus, a slave who became a philosopher, once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is knowing what must be done and having the strength to do it every day, without push, without praise, without immediate reward. And most importantly, true discipline doesn't come from self-hatred. It comes from reverence for yourself. You rise early not out of fear of falling behind, but to greet your day with clarity. You train not because you despise your current body, but because you honor its ability to move. You eat clean, not from fear of fat, but because you understand that good energy starts with conscious choices. When you see discipline as punishment, you will always resist yourself. But when you see discipline as an act of self-respect, everything changes. You begin to choose what's right, not because you're forced, but because you know you deserve to live at your best. Discipline stops being a cage. It becomes a boundary that protects what you truly value. The undisciplined live by impulse. The disciplined live by depth. And the difference isn't how strict they are, it's how much love they carry for their own future. So ask yourself again, are you forcing yourself or lifting yourself through principle? Are you avoiding hardship or training your mind to be more reliable each day? Discipline is not asceticism. Discipline is how you say, I believe in the best version of myself, and I'm willing to act for it, even when no one's watching. And that is a form of inner strength, quiet but unshakable. Part 5. Strength is not muscle. Strength is the ability to weather storms. Today, the image of strength is often tied to broad chests, sculpted abs, bulging arms. Social media celebrates bodies lit just right, captured at perfect angles, filtered to flawlessness. But behind those photos, how much real vitality exists? How many of those muscles truly help when life pours heavy rain, when illness hits, when stress drags on, when the unexpected crashes down? A beautiful body is not always a strong one. To the Stoics, physical health is not a beauty contest. It's a foundation, not just to survive, but to endure hardship without breaking. Stoics don't train to show off. They train to prepare, to be ready for long work days, for sleepless nights with a sick child, for injury, rejection, emotional pain, for seasons where they must carry everything alone. To them, training is a form of responsibility toward the self. True strength isn't how much weight you can lift. It's how many times you can stand back up after life knocks you down. And to do that, your body doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be dependable. Not ideal, just ready. Training isn't a performance. It's a survival strategy. It's asking, can I work a full day without crashing? Can I run if danger strikes? Hold my child when they need me? These are the Stoic questions, not is my jawline sharp enough? And the beauty is this. When you stop training for others' eyes and start training for your own vitality, you begin to feel a deep connection between your body and your will. Each session becomes not a duty, but a ritual of resilience. No longer about measuring up, but about becoming reliable. You don't need a body that impresses. You need a body that holds you when life gets heavy, because you won't always control what happens. But if your body is strong, steady, enduring, you'll be harder to shake. So don't ask, do I look strong? Ask, am I strong enough to protect what matters? Because strength isn't surface deep. True strength is the ability to rise, to repeat, to keep walking, even when no one's left to cheer you on. Part 6. Live by rhythm, not by forced schedules. In nature, no tree blooms through all 4 seasons. No river rushes endlessly without ever slowing. No sun stays forever at its peak. Nature moves in cycles. Spring brings growth, summer explodes, autumn gathers, winter rests. But modern humans forget this. We try to sustain constant productivity every day, every week, every month, as if we were machines programmed to run without pause, without rest, without need for recovery. The result? Stress, burnout, insomnia, a dull ache of disconnection, like we're falling behind in our own lives. The Stoics never glorified exhaustion disguised as discipline. They didn't race against mindless calendars. They lived with awareness of their natural rhythms, just as they observed the movement of the universe. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "All things change, and that is the nature of everything. Embrace the turning of nature as part of the order." You don't need to be productive at all times. What you need is sensitivity, to know when to push and when to pull back. That's not laziness. It's long-term strategy. The wise don't burn themselves out in a week only to collapse for a month. They allocate energy with intention. Some days are for momentum, others for stillness. Some weeks for deep output, others for quiet restoration. Not based on whims, but on attunement with their own cycles. Your body speaks to you every day. Some days you feel sharp, alert, vibrant. Those are days to go farther. But some days feel slow, blurry, off. Those are signs to recover, not to blame yourself. Stoics don't measure worth by hours worked. They measure by the balance between striving and sustaining. When you live in rhythm, you're not depleted. You no longer wake every day exhausted, needing 3 cups of coffee just to feel alive. You begin to feel the natural surges and ride them. You also learn to retreat without guilt, to recharge so you can return clearer and stronger. Remember, living in rhythm isn't compromise, it's mastery. No one can sprint forever, but if you know when to run and when to rest, you'll go farther, longer, deeper. That is the Stoic way, not always accelerating, but always awake to the pace that sustains the journey. Part 7. Let go of obsession. Hold on to alignment. You might be training consistently, eating clean, sleeping on schedule, tracking calories, counting every step. But if deep down you always feel not enough, then all those efforts, however disciplined they may appear, are being fueled by fear, not awareness. Fear of not looking good, fear of falling behind, fear of aging, weakening, becoming less attractive, fear of judgment, of being left behind in a world obsessed with physique, achievement, and unrealistic standards. And once you live from fear, there is no finish line. You'll always run, always compare, always feel lacking. Even if you reach the ideal body, it still won't feel thin enough, fit enough, good enough, because fear is never full. Seneca once said, "A poor man is not one who has little, but one who is never satisfied." This is not just about wealth. It's about how we relate to ourselves. When you constantly feel not enough, no matter what you do, you live in a chronic state of lack. That is a form of spiritual poverty, quiet but persistent. The Stoics chose a different path. They didn't chase outer perfection. They sought inner alignment. They didn't ask, "Am I good enough by their standards?" They asked, "Am I living true to my values?" They didn't obsess over the mirror. They tuned into what they felt in their chest. Stillness, groundedness, the calm of facing yourself, even when no one is clapping. Training, eating, resting, when rooted in self-respect and understanding, lead to lasting strength, not reliant on external approval. But if they come from shame or fear, they become another prison, more subtle, but just as confining. Letting go of obsession doesn't mean giving up. It means shifting from trying to be perfect to living as a real human being. One clear enough to know their limits, wise enough to adjust, steady enough not to race against others. Ask yourself again, am I training out of love for this body or out of rejection? Am I eating to nourish or to punish? Am I living to impress or to truly be present? The Stoic doesn't aim to become an icon. They aim to live rightly and live honestly. Because inner peace remains the deepest form of strength, one no muscle can replace. And once you have that inner harmony, you have nothing left to prove. All that's left is to keep walking, steady, grounded, and enough. Part 8. Movement is not punishment. It is a thank you to life. Many people begin working out not out of love for movement, but out of guilt. After an overindulgent meal, they rush to the gym as if repenting to their bodies. After a few lazy days, they run hard to make up for it. And just like that, exercise becomes punishment, a form of self-sentencing, not a journey of uplift. But anything rooted in guilt cannot last. Sooner or later, the body resists, the mind tires, and motivation, already fragile, dissolves. The Stoics don't move this way. They don't use exercise to erase sin. They don't walk, run, or lift as if punishing themselves. They move because they still can. They train out of gratitude. Gratitude that the body is still whole enough to stretch, to walk, to lift, to exist. They don't wait for illness to value health. They don't wait until movement is gone to cherish each step. They choose to say thank you to life through each breath, each drop of sweat, each flex of muscle. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, What is in harmony with nature is always right, and movement, by its very nature, is part of that harmony. The human body was made to move, not to remain parked in cars, sunk into chairs, or slouched before screens. When you move with awareness, you restore the body's right to do what it was built to do. Training, rightly seen, is not a heavy obligation. It is a daily ritual to reconnect with life. Each time you step onto the mat, you're not trying to create a better version of yourself. You're expressing gratitude for the living self you already are. And in that spirit, every motion becomes lighter, every stride sacred, every lift a quiet celebration that you are still here, still present, still evolving. Those who move from guilt will always doubt themselves. But those who move from gratitude need no reason to continue. They don't need hype music, recording cameras, or reminders. They move because it's simply a part of conscious living. So next time you prepare to run, don't think, I have to do this to make up for something. Think, I get to do this because this body still can. And from that awareness, you will find freedom in movement, not to meet a standard, but to live fully. Part 9. Master the first hour, and you'll master the rest. When you wake up, what's the first thing you do? If it's reaching for your phone, checking notifications, scrolling news, reflexively replying to messages, then unfortunately you haven't started your day. The world has started it for you. Your eyes have just opened, yet your mind is already hijacked by outer noise. You don't even know what you need today, but others have already decided what demands your attention. And just like that, your day slips into reactivity, without intention, without space for clarity. The Stoics chose a different path. They understood that how you begin your morning shapes how you live the rest of the day. Marcus Aurelius, a great emperor, yet also a deeply grounded philosopher, reminded himself each morning, when you wake, remember that you are alive, that you can breathe, think, and love. That is a privilege. For him, morning was not a time to rush into doing, but a sacred space to return inward, to listen, to recalibrate the compass of life. The first hour of your day should be the most sacred. It doesn't need to be complex. You don't need a 10-step routine or to copy anyone else. You only need to be present, truly and with yourself. The first breath you notice, the glass of water you drink in silence, the sunlight you let warm your face, the few lines you write by hand to check in with your inner world. These seemingly small acts are, in truth, the foundation of mental strength. Those who skip this hour often live their days being dragged, easily distracted, easily agitated, easily swept up in the rush of society. But those who master the first hour live differently. They don't begin their day in noise, but in intentional silence, not with doing, but with returning. You cannot control everything that will happen today, but you can decide how you enter it. And if you enter with clarity, calm, and awareness, you've already created an advantage greater than those who've been rushing for hours. So, tomorrow morning when you open your eyes, slow down for a few minutes. Before you touch your phone, touch your own awareness. Before you react to the world, reflect within, and you'll see. When you master the first hour, you don't need to control the whole day. You've already shaped it from the root. Part 10. The fundamentals are the ultimate weapon. We live in an age obsessed with self-optimization. Biohacks, supplements, smartwatches, heart rate trackers, meditation apps, blue light filters, deep sleep pills, neuro recovery drinks. Everything comes with a label, scientific, high-tech, designed for the busy. But there's one simple truth most people don't want to hear. Your problem isn't the lack of tools. It's that you're neglecting the basics. The Stoics would look at this truth and smile. You don't need something new. You need to do the old things, consistently and well. Seneca once warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And in our modern world, we suffer because we believe that the more complex something is, the more effective it must be. But the body doesn't run on apps. It runs on natural rhythms. You can't hack your sleep with a pill if you're still staying up late and scrolling your phone at midnight. You can't boost focus with 3 cups of coffee if you forget to drink water. You can't relieve stress with the 4-7-8 breathing technique if you sit still all day and never move. You don't need more. You need to return. Return to quality sleep at the right time, in the right rhythm, in the right environment. Return to plain water. No sugar, no color, no promises, just life itself. Return to morning sunlight, that free vitamin D you've forgotten to touch. Return to walking, even just 15 minutes each morning to get the blood flowing, the mind clear, the heart grounded. These things may not seem exciting like the latest tech, but they carry something no gadget ever will. They've been tested by time and by nature itself. No ads, no trends, just you actually doing them. The Stoics didn't chase what's newest. They mastered what's simplest every single day. They knew that if you can't keep your body steady through the fundamentals, no hack can patch the holes in your mind. Ask yourself honestly, am I really sleeping enough or just masking fatigue with caffeine? Am I drinking water or replacing it with energy drinks? Do I step into sunlight each day or live like a creature of artificial light? Do I move my body or forget that I was born to move? You don't need to buy anything else. You only need to begin again with the essentials, patiently, intentionally, presently. And you'll realize the basics are not basic. They are the foundation, stronger than any trend, more powerful than any technology. Part 11. The goal is not perfection. The goal is not giving up. There's a subtle trap many fall into when beginning the journey of self-improvement: perfectionism. They draft detailed plans, design flawless routines, commit to waking at 5 a.m., training for 60 minutes, eating without a single gram of carbs out of place, sleeping exactly at 10 p.m. And then, just one off day, oversleeping, overeating, skipping a workout, and it all collapses. They blame themselves. I have no discipline, they think, so they quit. Not because they lack ability, but because they believe, if it isn't perfect, it's pointless. The Stoics think differently. They understand. The goal isn't perfection, it's sustainability. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You must build your life action by action and be satisfied if each one achieves its purpose." There's no such thing as a perfect day. Only right choices, repeated, however small, but consistent. The perfectionist lives on expectations. The consistent one lives on action. The perfectionist waits for inspiration. The consistent one shows up, even without it. The perfectionist measures success by instant outcomes. The consistent one looks at direction and rhythm. The Stoics don't expect you to always be right, always strong, always ready. They simply ask, don't betray yourself today. Don't betray yourself by delaying. Don't betray yourself by making excuses. Don't betray yourself by letting fear steer the wheel. Just do what you know is right, within your current capacity. Every small action you take today, a glass of water, a few hundred extra steps, a conscious meal, going to bed 15 minutes earlier, is not small. Each is a vote for the person you want to become. And those votes cast day after day shape identity. Repeated actions become habits. Habits sustained long enough create a new you. So don't erase everything for one misstep. One bad meal doesn't mean you failed. One lazy day doesn't make you a quitter. You only truly fail when you abandon the journey altogether. But if you return, even with one small act, you are still on the path. Let go of the fantasy of the perfect version. Be loyal to the version that keeps moving, step by step, day by day. That is the Stoic spirit, not perfection, but honesty, not flawlessness, but steadiness, not control, but refusing to abandon what truly matters. Because the greatest goal isn't never being wrong. The greatest goal is, even when you fall, you keep going. Ending. Don't fight your body, work with it. You don't need another fitness goal. You don't need a new 30-day transformation plan or a 75-day no-excuse challenge. What you truly need is a healthier relationship with your body, a deeper understanding, an attitude of cooperation, not confrontation. The Stoics never tried to rule the body like a dictator over rebellious land. They didn't silence it when it was tired, ignore it when it asked for rest, or shame it when it failed to meet someone else's standard of perfection. Instead, they learned to listen. They observed it like a respected companion, like a quiet biological compass pointing the way. They lived wisely within its limits, and through that, they lived more freely. True strength isn't in abs, biceps, or running faster than others. True strength is waking up each morning and feeling trustworthy to yourself. It's moving through the world without carrying an invisible war against your own being. It's when your body is no longer a burden to fix, but a foundation to walk on with steadiness. The alignment of body, mind, and spirit isn't a destination. It's a subtle process built through small daily choices. Resting at the right time, eating with presence, training with awareness, breathing in silence, sleeping without guilt, waking without rush. And from that repetition, a sturdier version of you will quietly take shape, not flashy, not needing medals, but solid enough to withstand whatever comes. Your body doesn't need to be remade. It needs to be trusted. And if you choose to listen, it will guide you back to your most natural state, to live fully, to live mindfully, to live with intent. So now, the question is no longer, how can I force myself to be better? But rather, how can I partner with my body more wisely? The Stoic path is not loud, not extreme, not punishing. It is slower, deeper, but stronger, clearer, and more real. And if what you seek is a kind of strength that doesn't fade with age, doesn't disappear when appearance changes, doesn't collapse in crisis, then that path is already within you. You don't need a perfect beginning, just one clear decision. Now, the decision to listen to your body instead of pushing it constantly. The decision to rest without guilt. The decision to eat to nourish, not to escape. The decision to train out of gratitude, not punishment. And above all, the decision to live in harmony, body, mind, and spirit. You don't need to do it all at once. Just take one small step in the right direction, a glass of water in silence, a walk without your phone, a night of early sleep, not because you're exhausted, but because you respect yourself. The Stoic way doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with awakening. And if you've read this far, that awakening has already begun. Now keep walking. No need to rush. Just walk steady,